Cool. So let's talk a little bit about Git. So y'all are using Git and GitHub for your project, I assume. Hopefully, I know you are because you've sent me your repos. So one of the things I'd like to talk about is the flow, the Git flow. That is a good practice to use when working on a project with multiple people or even by yourself. Sometimes when you are separated from your work by time, you are different people. Definitely come back to a project a month later and be like, who wrote this? I don't know. Let's figure it out. So I actually I'm going to try something out and see how it works here. There's whiteboards in Zoom, and I have a little pen. So I'm going to try that and see how it goes. Let's see, can I draw here? Maybe. Boop. Hi. Awesome. Cool. So, oh, that's with the eraser too. Let me erase that. Great. Maybe I see lots of little cursors around, so maybe you can draw too. I don't know. So, Git. Git. Oh, I have two monitors, so it's gonna be all squishy. Anyway, so Git. Let's talk about what Git is first and what GitHub is first, just to see, because it's when we start using it, it can feel a little bit magic because we're just given these commands to do, and we do them, and if they don't work, we don't know why or how to fix them. So, Git is a source control source control SCM, yeah, source control management system. That's an M. That's an M. Source control management system. And what that means is that we can use it to keep track of files, often code, but not always, and manage different versions of those in one way or another. Git is one, Subversion is one, CDS, Mercurial, Source, whatever the Microsoft one is. There's a bunch of them. A lot of people use Git because it is open source, it's free, readily available, and there's a lot of places online that support it. So, talking about Git specifically, Git has repos. Oop, that is a shape. There we go. Git has repos. What is a Git repo? Anyone have any ideas? How would you describe a Git repo?
A bucket
A bucket. Yeah,
to store stuff in.
cool. What else?
A repository to store stuff in.
Mm-hmm. Let's get one more. I think your volume's a little bit down, Clement. Can you say that again?
I'm sorry, no, nothing.
So, these are all good. A repo or repository is a place where we're keeping our set of files. What makes in a Git repo, or let's talk about Git specifically. I'm not going to talk about generalizations. Git specifically, a repository is a directory full of stuff, and that directory, has all your files in it. So it's got files here. That's a great drawing. So we got folders and files. What makes this a source controlled thing, a repository, is that it keeps track of changes. So every Git repo starts out empty, empty directory. We can initialize it with a bunch of files. So we can say our first set of stuff, good drawing, our first set of stuff is the initial commit, whether it's nothing or a set of files. When we do that commit 2 amps. When we do a commit, that basically says this was the old set of files, and this is the new set of stuff in here. What the actual commit itself, all it is a S set of changes. So all a commit is saying, look at this file, add these lines, remove this file, change this line to this, create this directory, remove this thing. So a commit and git is basically just a set of instructions that says, hey, I'm going to look at the stuff ahead of me. I'm going to make these changes. And that set of changes, when applied to the whole thing, gives us this state here. So that's what's actually happening when you commit. If you can go into your .git directory and you can actually see what those, they call them diff files, DIFF files. And you can actually see what those changes look like. And if you've ever had a merge conflict, you'll see those too. So we can kind of visualize it as, you know, a set of, you'll often see a set of circles and arrows. This is our change. This is our change. So we're going from this state, commit, commit, commit to here. And this is really nice because if we go to commit 3 here, and we decide that our stuff in 4 is complete garbage, we can go back and set this one to the current one. So we can just say, we're going to set the head, and that is the current set of changes we're looking at, the head of the repo to that set, and just get rid of whatever came before it. And each, I'm using 1, 2, 3 here. Each commit has a long code ID that you can refer to it by. So you can say, oh, set the head to number 2, set the head to AO2314F7 or whatever. So that lets us say where we are currently working, what set of changes we are working on. And then we can make our changes, commit them. So where does branching come into this? So branching, space there, good stuff. So we have our set of changes here, and it's a nice straight line. So say we have, actually, let me see if I can just delete everything here. Can I just erase everything? Erase everything. I'll start from scratch here. So we're going to have a nice linear set of changes. Oh, this is not pixel based. This is it's just deleting the chunks. Okay, cool. Noted. There's got to be a delete everything button. Get rid of that. All right. So we've got our nice set of commits here in a line. And at this point here, we want to add a feature. We want to add a submit form to register or whatever. So this is our main branch. Main branch. Every branch has a name. Main branch is where we're going to be working most of the time in older repos. And some people still use master. We decided that was a bad name for things, so we call it main now. And so what we like to do is create a new branch. So here's our current head here. I want to add a dropdown that does something. So I would create a new branch, and we'll call this our dropdown branch. And so this is going to be our new head here. And we can continue working on the main branch as long as we want. Ideally, we're only going to be working feature branches, but say there's more commits happening here. So we're working on our dropdown branch, and we make a couple commits, and we decide it's good. Then we can merge it back into the main branch. And so we're adding these sets of changes to what happened here. I won't go into rebasing, but basically merge is one way to do it, and rebase is the other. There are subtle differences, but I'm just going to refer to both of these as merge. So when we merge our dropdown branch back into here, basically that means that the main branch is going to have all of these changes applied to it. So it's going to include all the stuff we did from the dropdown on top of all this. Occasionally we will change files that other people are working on, and we'll get a merge conflict. And so often what I will, almost every time, what I like to do is branches aren't special. The main branch is not any different than any other branch. The main branch just happens to be called main. It can be called sandwich. Every branch is equal. Every branch can be merged into every other branch. So if we wanted to, we could use the pencil tool, and we can merge the main branch back into our feature branch. And that way we know we're only working on our stuff here. Everything's going to be cool. And then when we merge it back up, there's not going to be any conflicts. So, and we can make as many branches as we want here. So as we are working along, someone else can make a branch here that's adding our, whatever form, and then do commits here and merge back in. So as we are working along, this main branch is going to remain stable. So if it's project day or presentation day, and we decide we're going to add this form at the last minute, and for some reason it's not working, that's cool. We can present on the main branch, and whatever we did to mess it up is not going to be there. Similarly, if two people are working on two different things, they can work in their own little environments. When they're ready to merge it into the main project, they can do that without interfering with each other. And that's how you can have teams of hundreds of people working on the same code base a lot of times. So just to sort of make it a little bit less granular, we have our main branch here. Every time we do a feature or a bug fix, we're going to make a branch. And so we can do that by saying, so we're in our main branch. We can do checkout -b and then our branch name. And that will put us in a new branch. And we call it descriptively, we call it the name of the feature we're adding, or we call it the bug that we're fixing. If we're using an issue control system, we can put the number of the bug there, and there's some cool integrations that can happen there. And so once we're working on that, we can work on it. If we want to switch to another branch, we can say, check out the name of that branch. And we work along until it's time to merge back into the main. And then we just say, so we're on the this feature branch. And while we're in there, we just say, why does it keep switching back? Oh, because I keep hitting this button. We say merge main. And so this will merge the name of the branch that you're giving here into your current branch. So this is merging the contents of main into the feature branch. And if everything goes cool with that, then we're going to check out main. So that'll make main our current branch. And then we'll say merge feature, whatever it's called. And so that will merge our feature branch back into main. And that way we can guarantee there's not going to be any conflicts. If there are, we would take care of them in our own branch. Yeah, and so that's the basic flow there. We just keep doing this a bunch of times. You can have literally hundreds of branches, and you can branch off of other branches. If this feature branch has a couple pieces, we can do a couple branches off of that, and they all eventually get merged back into main. If you're on a project and you want to be extra fancy and you're deploying stuff, you can have a deploy branch or a staging branch, and then every once in a while, when you have a release, you'll merge main into that deploy branch, and that will get automatically pushed off somewhere. You don't need to worry about that part just yet, but it'll probably be happening in the future. So that's like a high level overview of what our general strategy would be. I see we have a question. Great, Gail.
So when you push changes, you typically do that after you have merged, right? Like you don't. Okay, because I think that caused me issues earlier where I was pushing to the branch and then I I didn't know how to like do that to main.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Oh, that's a great point. So we have our repo up on GitHub. 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 There we go. Perfect. So here's our repo. It's up on GitHub. It's on the internet. Little cloud. So that is similar to how branches are not special. Repos are not special. Every repo is the same in Git. Some source control things have like a root repo that everything comes off of. Not with Git. Every repo in Git is of equal importance. So when we create a repo on GitHub, it's just saying like, hey, here's a set of changes. When we create our own, so we've got person A and we've got person B, and they make their own Git repos here. These are also all equal. So you can either create a repo fresh and push it up to GitHub, or you can clone something down and get a copy. When you clone something, it just makes a copy. So basically you're saying, give me this set of changes here. And it might start off empty, but basically you say clone, it's going to give me that set of changes, that set of files. And then we can each work on our own stuff here. And when we're ready to sort of sync it up, that's when we do our push. And we can also pull. So push, pull, clone, all sorts of good words. So when we pull from a repo, we're just saying, hey, if you have any changes, any commits available on the branch that I'm looking at, send them to me and I'll incorporate them. When you push stuff up, you're saying, hey, remote repo, I've got a bunch of changes. Please incorporate those. And the only reason really we're using GitHub as an intermediary, these could just as easily just push and pull directly to each other if they were available to the internet at large. In general, the ones you create on your machine aren't, unless you set up a Git server and all that stuff. So right now we're kind of using GitHub as an intermediary and incidentally as like an offsite backup in case of both these people, their computers explode at the same time. We can keep working. Probably have other problems though. So yeah, so you can branch, add, commit, merge to your heart's content on your own repo as much as you want, and only push when you want to send changes up there. And yeah, so I like to push pretty much every time I make a change, especially if I'm on a branch, because then I'm just, like our local repo, our GitHub repo is going to have branches and everything just the same as we are. So I like to continually push up, just, again, in case a plane crashes into my house and my work goes away, there's still a copy somewhere. Yeah, did that answer what you're asking?
Yeah, I did.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, and so that's the basic thing. And then when we're done, someone will be on the main branch and show us the project from there. Or if you're deploying it, you'll deploy it from there. But yeah, the strategy ensures that you always have something that's working, and whatever changes, and that allows you to, oh, I'm over here and I have a crazy new feature I want to work on, some experimental thing, and that's an atom, right? Experimental, and it might not go any. We might not decide to use that technology. We might have made a terrible mistake, and we can just delete that branch, and the main branch never has to worry about it. So it really allows us a lot of flexibility. Or like if I'm refactoring something, when you refactor something, you want the code to work exactly the same as it did before. So I might start refactoring stuff, introduce some errors, cause a big mess, and be like, you know what, I'm getting rid of this branch and starting from scratch and just branch off of main again. So it really gives you a lot of confidence, really, that you can do work without messing stuff up. Yeah. So that's the basics of it. What questions do we have? And or how have you been using Git, or what do you have about Git in general?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
When it comes to version control and especially version control between branches and main,
Mhm.
if I have commits that I want to make on a branch and the main has been updated,
Mhm.
would it be better to pull the updated main branch to my local machine, merge it on my local machine, and then push up to the branch? Or
Absolutely.
do the okay. And
Yeah.
as opposed to just like pushing everything up to the branch and then merging when I merge that with the main branch on GitHub.
Yeah, and that's more of a case with small projects like this because everyone's, I mean, probably going to be working on the same files most of the time. If you're in a in a huge project where there's someone working on this whole silo of here's our wish list thing, here's our order flow, here are product description pages. Those things might not touch each other at all, so you don't really need to do that. But if it's a tighter project or a smaller team, and someone's like, if there's only 2 or 3 people working on it, one person can say, "Hey, I just pushed up some new CSS. You can go ahead and merge that into your branch, so you can continue working with the cooler stuff, the most recent stuff." Did that answer what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. What else? What else do we have?
I just have a question about so is the merge command just checking like the differences to the like what was most recently committed to like because when in the case where you get a divergent branch or something like that, like I had an issue with that. Like what's happening there? Is it just checking like what code blocks are not consistent? Or
Yeah. So if we have our here's our thing here, right? So there's going to be changes here, 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 say here, here, and here, it's merging back up to here. So when you merge, and this is merge, not rebase, basically it kind of like looks at and this is exactly how it works, but it basically looks at the time that they were all put in, and it tries to kind of, it applies those changes here. So ideally, all of these changes will make sense as you go along. The difference between merging and rebasing is that rebasing basically takes all of your changes and smacks them at the end instead of trying to interleave them. But your question is more about the merge conflicts and stuff. So, if we're both working on the same file, and I change these lines, and you changed these lines, merge isn't going to know what to do with the things that we've both changed. So that's when it's going to bring up that merge conflict thing, and it might show up in the VS Code as some things that you have to work out depending on your environment. And basically, when you merge 2 commits that work on the same spot and it can't figure out what that is, it's going to bring up that merge conflict. And that's basically saying, hey, I am a computer and I'm not smart enough to figure out which one of these is right. You are a human. I'm going to ask you which one of these pieces of code to keep. And so, this is mine, this is yours. And you're like, oh yeah, we talked about it, and I know that my code is the correct piece. So it's going to take that part of this file and these parts of this file and put it all together into the new file, or the other way around. So basically, those conflicts come up when it can't figure out which sections to replace or move or whatever, and that's especially in a small project, that can happen when 2 people are working on the same file, and one of them has changed something, and then the other person changes the same thing. And that's kind of why I recommend merging main into your branch first. So if there are any merge conflicts that would arise when you tried to push it up, you can take care of it on your own stuff first and then push it up. So basically, you're taking care of how your stuff integrates with main instead of making it main's problem, if that makes sense. That answer what you're asking? Cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Quick follow-up, specifically the syntax. So if I'm checked out on a branch and I run git merge main, that pulls the changes from the main branch to my branch that I'm on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And it was kind of counterintuitive to me when I was learning it. But yeah, it's basically you're saying which branch to merge into the branch that you're currently on, because you already know that one. And that way it kind of ensures that you can't easily like merge two branches that you're not working on together accidentally. So it's always merge some other branch into my branch. Cool. What else?
I have a question, but I'll save it for the end. It's not related to
Oh, go for it.
GitHub. It's about the project in general.
Oh, okay.
I know that it's supposed to be a single page web application. Are URLs linking to other websites okay? It seems
Sure.
like it's kind of part of it.
Yeah,
a
as
little
long
bit,
as they're like navigation within your app should be one page, but
Yeah.
if it goes somewhere
Yeah.
else, then it goes somewhere else.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's okay because it's kind of a core feature.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you probably want to have it like open into a new tab or a new window, or
okay, that's a good
want to
idea.
get crazy with iframes.
We can figure that out. Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments about GitHub merging strategy? Cool. Half an hour is good. Yeah, so give this a shot. This general, there's more picky stuff to it, but if you look at Git Flow, FLOW, I keep hitting that button. If you Google that, I think Atlassian has some good pages on it, but this is the name for the general process, and depending where you look, they might have a lot more like picky, detailed steps. But this is the general thing to keep in mind. Awesome. I'm gonna close the whiteboard. Hey, there we are. Cool. Hopefully that shows up on the recording. Any last questions before we go back to product stuff? Cool. Well, I'm always around if you have more stuff or need Git can be a real pain to figure out what's going on if something gets super screwed up. Fortunately, you can't super screw it up too much. You can always go back to your last commit. So yeah, if you have anything that you need sorted out or troubleshot, give me a holler. Otherwise, yeah, I'll see you all in a little bit. Thanks for hanging out.